Welcome everybody to the Essentials of Numerology course. This is my first course in the numerology series. This is the series is called Chalk It Up to the Numbers, and we are literally going to get to the basics of the actual numbers. So today we're going to be discussing overall just like the history of numerology, where it comes from, how this even became a thing, and then discuss like the metaphysical meaning behind the numbers, as well as then we go into actually looking at the numbers itself. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. Now, usually I hear a lot of different questions around the numbers, around like what angel numbers mean, or I keep seeing 111 or 222 or 333. And a lot of times people just become very confused and overwhelmed with the information of what they're seeing, but not recognizing that if you just know the basic information of what numbers mean, the metaphysical meaning behind it, you can get a clue behind some of the messages you're receiving when you do see numbers in your dreams, or you do see numbers in different repetition, or different ways of seeing your angel numbers on the clock. So this is going to be one of those courses where you're just going to learn all of that, and then we kind of piece things together. So feel free to drop some questions in the chat. I'll be sure to take good care of looking at the chat, and if we have any other questions, I can definitely show you and explain to you exactly what that is. So thank you again. If you don't know me, my name is Tiara. I am a spiritual clarity coach, a professional numerologist, a professional dream interpreter, and a psychic medium. I've been doing this work for almost pretty much my whole life. But in the realm of numerology, I became certified in numerology back in 2017. And I've been doing this for my business ever since then. So yeah, welcome to the course. We're going to get right into it, and yeah, let's talk about it. So as we said before, we're going to talk about the history, the metaphysical meaning behind the numbers, the aspects of the self, and constructing a birth chart. So if you don't know, if you've gotten an astrology reading, you've gotten a birth chart reading. You put in your number, your birthday, your time of birth, and your location. And that's what astrologers use to create and determine the birth information on their astrology chart. But for numerology, it's quite different. However, we still use your birthday. And if I'm looking overall at your chart, I will use your name as well too. But today we're just going to be talking about how to construct the actual birth chart, so you can look at that for yourself. And then I'm going to teach you exactly how to interpret the birth chart, and look at how the actual numbers are playing a role in your life. Okay, so let's get started. So make sure you take out your notebook or the workbook that I sent. The workbook has some examples, or it has a layout of how to actually practice doing the numerology work here. So take out your notebook, your favorite pen, your notebook and workbook, and then turn your cell phone off onto silent or vibrate. And if you need any support from me whatsoever, you can contact me in the chat, or you can send me a message on my website at queenswilletdreams.com. All right, let's get started. So, let's talk about the essentials of numerology. So numerology is a science that studies the energetic vibrations of numbers, which are present in everything, since energy is the basis of all things. Numerology offers a basic roadmap of our lives, allowing us to make decisions and interact with the world with more clarity. By providing direct knowledge of the self, numerology empowers individuals to take control of their lives and make informed choices, rather than feeling helpless and at the mercy of fate. So pretty much, and we'll learn about it in a sense, but like numerology, like the numbers have energy. And I think until recently, like, in the recent past, maybe 80 to 100 years, scientists really didn't believe energy was everywhere, and so now that there is actually scientifically proven, so much to the fact that atoms are vibrating at such a slow rate that light passes through them and they become solid, like the energy becomes solid. And that's how you can see atoms, especially like in a microscope or whatnot. And so that's when they determine like, oh, energy is actually everywhere. Everything is actually vibrating. So that means, the numbers are vibrating and they have their own vibration. That means literally everything in this sense has energy. And so when we're talking about numerology provides an energetic blueprint of what our lives are looking like, what our lives consist of, and the energy that we hold within ourselves. So yeah, let's keep going. So as we said before, we're going to be talking about the history of the numbers and history of numerology and metaphysical meaning behind the numbers. We're going to construct a birth chart, and then we're going to interpret the numbers in your birth chart. So, and also this will be like an intro to the arrows of individuality, which we'll get to later. All right, so lesson number 1, the history. What is numerology? So the history, in the mystical realm of Pythagorean wisdom, okay, numbers reign supreme as the fabric of existence itself. The fabled Pythagoras, a sage of mathematics and magic, aka the father of numbers, imparted this knowledge through his mystery school. So he created his own mystery school, but we're going to keep talking about it. This is where he revealed secrets of numerology after 10 plus years of learning in Egypt from Egyptian scholars. A lot of people don't recognize the fact that Pythagoras he spent time in different locations throughout the world, and he spent about 22 years in Egypt, working with the Egyptians. This arcane science delves into the energetic vibrations of our lives, illuminating a path towards understanding ourselves and guiding our choices. By peering into the depths of our inner selves, we unlock the power to make informed decisions and take control of our lives. Thus, numerology is a potent tool that empowers us to surmount the challenges of life's journey. So pretty much like numbers are more than just a mathematical tool of measurement. It holds energy and vibrations that are just as impactful to the world in our lives in itself. So nothing, and this is literally what came up from Pythagoras, was that nothing can exist without the influence of numbers. Thus, everything, meaning like art, philosophy, science, has a foundation of numbers. And if you look at that, like you can find on TikTok, you can find on Facebook, social media, YouTube, Instagram, like people are finding these new ways of finding information around how numbers are impacting our lives, and how numbers, there's codes, there's different codes, like what Tesla learned. I think his name Nikola Tesla, learned a code of wealth by using numbers 3, 6, and 9. So you learn so much about the energy behind the numbers to where you can utilize the numbers as a code in manifesting, a code in attracting abundance, and you're just doing science in its own way. It's just a metaphysical science. So let's talk about the basic metaphysical meanings of the numbers. If you have any questions so far, please put it in the chat. Let me know, and I will get to it. So yeah, in order to really learn anything about numerology, and I tell my clients this, I tell my friends, my family, I tell everybody this, in order to really get a good understanding of energy, we need to know what these numbers mean metaphysically, like just the basic numbers. And this is literally the blueprint that's going to help you. All right, so we're going to look at the numbers, basic numbers 1 through 9. Okay, any numbers after that, they kind of, they incorporate the influence of these basic numbers. So 10, 11, 12, 13, 22, 11, 33, whatever. So these are the basic numbers. You look at number one. Number one is the number of the self. It's the individual. It's the ego. It represents new beginnings. When you look at the number one, it's all about, who is this one person? This is the self. This is the ego. This is the very physical number. It's the gateway to the physical plane. And it governs our communication. And then number two, and notice when we talk about the numbers, how every number as we move up either kind of contradicts the next one or kind of adds to the next one or the one before it. So number two is the number of partnerships, collaborations, feelings, empathy, and patience. Number two governs our intuition. It is also the gateway number to the soul plane. Okay, so as number one is all about the physical and our ego and our individualization and leadership, two represents our partnerships, collaborations, feelings, and just being able to feel. One is ego, two is feeling. Three is the number of creativity, social interaction, creative expression. It also represents the left side of the brain. It's expansion, and it holds it's the holder of our memory. Okay, so it's the gateway number to the mind plane. Okay, so pay attention to that. We got 1, 2, and 3. And notice that 1 is like very physical, our ego. 2 is very much in our feelings. 3 is very much in our brain. So notice that we're talking about those three numbers because those are important. Now we got number 4. Number 4 is the number of structure, organization, environments, planning, practical, construction. It's the number of orderliness and practicality. I always call this number the doing number because 4 energy is all about what we're going to do. What are you going to do? How are you going to do it? Let's make it happen, and so let's make a plan. I think of 4 is like having that energy of just like, checking the boxes off. And 4 is symbolized by a square, because there's 4 sides to the square. Then we got number 5. 5, as we move up, and remember, we get, again, each number kind of either contradicts or like adds on to the next one. So number 5 is all about freedom. It's about change, adventure, love, and freedom of expression. It symbolizes the outward expression of the heart. Okay. So as 4 is like really organized and can also be kind of rigid, 5 is all about like, let's be free. Like, let's have an adventure, let's have fun. And you'll notice I'm giving these numbers personalities because they are really personable in that sense. Okay, then let's move on to number 6. 6 is the number that balances the left side of the brain, which is the 3, which you talk about represents the left side of the brain, and the right side of the brain, which is number 9. It represents creation in a positive way and destruction in a negative way. And then it's also, it represents family relationships, home and work-life balance. So a lot of times, like what you can see with the 6 energy is like very much family oriented or very much relationship oriented, and being able to provide and create in a sense of like wanting to have a sense of creation. And so, yeah, it's all about balance. If I can give you an example of what 6 is, just think of the pendulum, okay? A pendulum that swings back and forth. And the goal of the pendulum is like you're trying to get it to stick in the middle where there is balance, but it continues to swing. So a lot of times it is going to represent, again, creation if it swings to the positive, destruction if it swings to the negative. So the goal is to balance it all in general. Okay, so then let me know in the comments if this makes any sense, right? If any numbers are resonating with you whatsoever, let me know. All right, moving on to number 7. 7 is the number of personal growth. It's the number of sacrifice and loss. It's the number of experiences and learning from your experiences, teaching and learning, and it represents the temple and the human body. So pay attention to number 7, where you notice there's 7 deadly sins, 7 wonders of the world, 7 oceans, 7 continents. Like there's a spiritual connection to the physical body here with this number. And a lot of times when you see the number 7, which we're currently in a 7 universal year with 2023, this year is all about learning. And like it's a truth seeking number. It's the number that is going to need to experience things before they can truly just be told what it is. They have to experience it, they have to learn it, and with learning and having personal growth in those experiences comes with a level of sacrifice, a level of loss in some cases, so pay attention to that, because the 7 can bring so much information, but it's like you really have to kind of seek it. You have to experience it. You have to learn it and live it at the same time. And then you're moving on to number 8. Number 8 is the number of manifestation, abundance, spiritual wisdom, which is expressed through loving action. Again, spiritual wisdom expressed through loving action. It brings independence into focus, and it's also the number of karma. So like if you look at the number 8 and turn it sideways, it's an affinity sign, which means like there's infinite opportunities, infinite abundance, infinite ability to manifest, but also what you put in is what you get out. So you have to pay attention to these things, because if you're looking at the number 8 as like this is such an easy number to experience or to like kind of embrace, 8 is not any of these numbers. It's not necessarily super easy to embrace, simply because there has to be work that you put in. And if you're not putting in the work, then you're not going to get anything out. If you are thinking that you could just manifest abundance, but there's blockages there, like the 8 is going to bring that to reality. So it's really important to pay attention to that aspect as well too. And then know that personality wise, 8 is very much like a double 4. Okay, 8 has the qualities of a 4, but it's kind of heightened, and it also has a spiritual component with it as well. So this is a soul number, but it is very much a practical soul number, an independent soul number. So yeah, there's the number 8. And then we move to number 9, and 9 is the number of completion, humanitarianism, responsibility, ambition, idealism, forgiveness, and the ending of a cycle. Hence we're talking about 1 through 9. Okay. When you look at the number 9, 9 has like a very large perspective. Everything is on a larger scale, but 9 is also the number of war. People refer to it as the war number, and you'll find yourself looking at, like, in the negative, it can be a war number. In a positive, it can be like a Mother Teresa. So every number has its positive ends and negative ends, and it's all about what vibration we're in when we're dealing with that number. And so you find yourself in spaces that you have to kind of check yourself to know, like, okay, well, am I in a negative space or am I in a positive space? And if you don't know, like, it'll show it for you. It'll show it for you. So, but yeah, 9 is all about compassion. It's about forgiveness. It's about giving. It's a charity number. It's, like I say, 9 energy is very much one of the best givers out here, but it is a mind number. So this is where your ideas come from, your ambition, and you'll start seeing in the relationship between the numbers that there needs to be space for these numbers to cohabitate, in a sense, even if it's not very harmonious. Because some of these numbers are not harmonious with each other, whereas the 6 is very like family oriented, relationship oriented, and the 7 is very introspective, and the 7 is very let me do this on my own. Let me teach everybody up once I experience it, because 7s can become really good teachers because they've experienced so much. The 8s are like CEO energy, where the 9s are like idealistic humanitarians. Like they're really big on giving. You have the 2s who are all about like, let's work together, let's have partnership, like let's talk about our feelings. You got the 3s who are like really quick on their feet with when it comes to their mind, and like very logical when it comes to like playing chess, or they're very creative when it comes to communicating themselves. Then you got like the 4s who are all about planning everything out. So like you see, like these are different aspects of people that show up and show out in their own in their own energies. So those are the numbers 1 through 9. Now, a lot of times like people don't talk about the number 0. And 0 does exist. It is a thing, and it is something that we should all pay attention to. So like the number 0 is a symbolism of both nothing and everything. So how do I explain that? So you say like nothing and everything. It's like an energy that kind of represents potential. Okay. So with philosophical and mathematical significance, it also has a mystical symbol that is believed to indicate one's degree of spiritual mysticism. So here's the thing. When I look at someone's chart, which we will get into it, and I look at someone's chart and they have a 0 in their birthday, I can tell that there's potential for them to dive deeper into the world mysteries and like spiritual growth, and trying to find the secrets of life, maybe interested in reincarnation, maybe interested in self-discovery on different planes. So you can see a lot just from seeing is the possession of a 0 in your birthday can give you that energy to kind of comprehend a deeper level of life. So don't ignore the 0. But I put it there because it's like that's something that we all have to really pay attention to as well too. So questions, any questions? I have this quote here. This quote is actually from Pythagoras, and like we hear about the Pythagorean theorem, what we learned about in math and all that stuff. But what happened with Pythagoras was that he studied under a philosopher. Do not remember his name, but like studied under a philosopher, and he suggested he go to Egypt. So when he went to Egypt, he was trying to go to the mystery school that the Egyptians had, and they weren't letting him in. They were not allowing him to go in. They said that he had to go and do a 40-day, like he can't come in the way he is, because Pythagoras, he was thinking like all of this is intellectual. He wants to get a better understanding of things. And he's like, I just want to know on an intellectual level what this information is. This is the truth that he's seeking at this point is something that has to be lived. He can't come in thinking that it's going to be just learning from reading books. And so they required him to do a 40-day fast where he did intensive breathing techniques. And that is when he did do that, because he thought it was dumb. He was like, why wouldn't I do it? Or why would I do that? And then he went, and when he did the 40-day fast with the breathing techniques, he came back to the mystery school, and they allowed him in. And so this quote here is saying like, you're not allowing Pythagoras in. I am a different man. I am reborn. You were right. I was wrong, because then my whole standpoint was intellectual. Through this purification, my center of being has changed. Before this training, I could only understand through the intellect, through the head. Now I can feel. Now truth is not a concept to me, but a life. So I put that in there just to say like, numerology isn't about just knowing what the numbers are and knowing what it means and everything. You have to truly feel what this energy is. You have to feel what the experiences, and also truly learn the healing combination of what the numbers can do for you, and how you can work with them and work with the energy. So this is very much more than just an intellectual space. Although this is a class I'm teaching you about the basics of this is important to know that you are not going to come out of this just with some intellectual knowledge of what numbers mean. So let's move on. All right. So let's take a moment to fill into the numbers. If you have any questions, let me know. I use this time to, think about like a number that you were attracted to as a kid, whether it's your birthday numbers or whether it's your favorite volume on TV. Like, I don't know, like when I turned the TV volume up, I always turned it to a certain number or an even number. It felt weird to have an odd number, and there's reasons for that, so if you can feel into the numbers, you can feel into the energy and what is actually bringing up for you. So prior to coming to this course, if you felt like you were drawn to some numbers and didn't know why or didn't know what that meant, at least knowing the basic information of what the metaphysical meaning is of the numbers can support you in knowing like the direction is taking you down. So let's do that. Let's do that. So yeah, if you can put in the chat, like maybe some numbers that you felt drawn to, like something that you feel called to thinking about when it comes to the numbers. If you have a favorite number, if you have a number that sticks out to you the most, like let me know. Okay. Number 7. All right, cool. So number 7, obviously, like number 7 is a number that is all about spiritual growth. So if you are drawn to the number 7, you may be experiencing a spiritual awakening, or you're learning about different things. I mean, if you're drawn to number 7, I'm not surprised you're even in this course. So so yeah, this is all really good stuff, because then you find yourself becoming like the teacher, the person that wants to learn and be a master and a student at the same time. You want to master your own craft, you want to master your own gifts, and be able to help other people in the long run as well too. So that is where some people who may be drawn to 7 could be feeling that exact thing. But that's one of those things I'm like, yeah, 7 it is. All right, so we're here with lesson number 2, which is constructing the birth chart. So now that we talked about the birth numbers, I mean the basic numbers, the metaphysical meaning behind the basic numbers, we're going to talk about the birth chart. And before we can get to the birth chart, like how to construct and interpret the birth chart, we have to understand the 3 aspects of ourselves in the relationship with one another. So the 3 aspects of ourself, or the aspects of self, are the basic self, the conscious self, and the high. I put higher self because that's usually what I call it, but it's the high self. Okay, so the basic self is the primary level of human expression through the body's physical senses and activity. It operates from the left brain and is crucial for balanced expression in the physical form. Okay, this is the basic self. However, if left unchecked, the basic self can be purely ego-driven and prioritize wants over needs. By control, please put in the chat if you know people who are operating just from their basic self, and maybe you've even operated from just your basic self. But by controlling and understanding the basic self, we can recognize life's lessons without constant repetition and sacrifice. The basic self operates through the physical plane numbers 1, 4, and 7. Okay, you'll know exactly what I mean when I talk about the basic physical plane, in that level. So do you know anybody who is operating just from their basic self? I know a few people who may be doing that because, there's a lack of balance, so let's move on. The conscious self is the second aspect. The conscious self is the source of thoughts, attitudes, memory, creativity, and idealism, meditation, or mediating between our reactive and our spiritual side. So if you're looking at a level of things, the conscious self is the bridge that supports the relationship between the basic and the spiritual self. Positive use of the conscious self promotes knowledge, compassion, and wisdom, while negative use leads to fear, manipulation, and stress. Memory links past knowledge with present experience and can boost confidence, self-esteem, creativity, and idealism when utilized positively. The conscious self operates on the mind plane, numbers 3, 6, and 9. So remember when I was talking about the numbers 3, 3 governs the memory. It's the basic, it's the gateway number to the mind plane. And then it represents the left side of the brain, whereas the 9 represents the right side of the brain, and the 6 balances both sides of the brain. So when we look at the conscious self, this is like where our mind plane is. And as you can see, there's positive and negative to both of those. Then we have our high self. The high self encompasses our morals, spiritual values, and intuition. It represents our highest form of expression, the God within us, and is characterized as creative, spiritual, and compassionate. And numerology is represented by the soul or the feeling plane, and it consists of the numbers 2, 5, and 8. In the start of 2000, we saw an increase in the genuine spirituality involving human affairs, with every birthday having at least 1, 2. So now here's the thing. We are now at this point where we're looking at, and those who may resonate, there has been a huge shift in generations. We can see there's a shift in generations where now, things that were very hush hush and like you can't really talk about this stuff, back in before 2000, such as like spirituality or alternative practices, spiritual practices, or different, religions are being open to it. There's different levels of like feeling into things. And so now as we continue moving forward, you may feel like this is a generation now where everyone's worried about saying the right things or feeling the right things, or, being aware of other people's feelings. And so a lot of times you're finding like this new energy coming up because people now, let's see, it's 2023, and those born in 2000 and more, they're 23 years old, so it is a very, very interesting dynamic to pay attention to, because those born in the 90s or born with the 9s in the 1900s, pretty much, because we all have 9s in our birthdays, there's a whole different aspect of life because the numbers present different energies. So you find a lot of people who have the 9s in their birthdays become very ambitious, or they're like entrepreneurs, or they're really pushing to like, become on a larger scale, trying to help people on a larger scale. You see that happening a lot. So just pay attention to how the numbers and the generations can determine like kind of the direction we're going as a society. So now, here we go. We are now at the part of actually constructing our own birth chart. Okay. So unlike an astrology birth chart, you'll see like on an astrology birth chart, there's so large circle is divided into different dimensions, and like all of those around the circles, there's planets, there's houses, there's degrees, and there's aspects to those charts that like you have to really study and really understand to know what the energy is saying. In numerology, so far in this course, we're going to be talking about the actual basic part of the birth chart, and this is like one of the things. And you'll see in numerology moving forward in other courses that there's other charts that kind of resonate with your own birthday and your name and everything, and it's going to calculate and determine a lot of different other energies. So, but for this one, I always call it the tic-tac-toe one, because this is what a birth chart looks like. So and we'll use this as an example. I have an example here. But for the first time, if you're creating and constructing your birth chart, you draw a tic-tac-toe board. I call it the tic-tac-toe board. And you will use your birthday. Okay. So for the first step, you convert the birthday to its full numerical value. That means instead of saying, again, here it says May 15th, 1965. Instead of saying just May 15, 1965, you'll put 05/15, 1965, and always include the full year. Don't just use the last 2 digits of your year. Okay. The step 2 is, and this is also like the tic-tac-toe chart is the Pythagorean birth chart. So you have the tic-tac-toe and you just literally make it that way. An empty birth chart represents or is symbolic of an unborn child. So what a lot of people don't realize is that, say you're about to have a child, or you know someone who's about to have a child, and they have a prospective date of like when the baby is going to be born. Unlike astrology, we don't necessarily need the time of birth, but I still use the time of birth in different ways. It's just, we'll talk about it at a different point. But if you know what the birthday is supposed to be, you can put this birth chart together and see some of the aspects that your child is going to, or the child is going to need, strengths, weaknesses, and how to balance things out. Okay. So this is an empty birth chart. Then for the next birth, where we're going to put the information for the birth chart is each of the 9 spaces on this birth chart has like a base number that cannot be moved or changed. If the number is missing in the birthday, then it's just an empty spot. Okay. A full balanced birth chart contains all 9 numbers, which 1 is here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. These are where the birth chart numbers are going to be. You can't change it. You can't move it. Nothing like that. Okay. So that's what a full balanced birth chart looks like. And you rarely find anybody who has all numbers at all. So let's move on. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat. Let me know. Just try to make this as simple as possible. Okay. So in this, and here's the thing, and sometimes we can become overwhelmed with the information. At the end of the day, this is going to be like step by step, and it's pretty much just plugging puzzle pieces into a chart, So, here's an example of what the the balanced birth chart looks like. It has all the numbers here. Okay. Now, if you remember when we talked about 3, 6, and 9 being the conscious self numbers, this is the mind plane. So this is the 3, 6, and 9 are the mind plane. That's the mental, the thinking. The 2, 5, and 8 are the soul plane, which is the high self. That's spiritual and feeling. These are 2, 5, and 8. Remember, we talked about the connection with our high self. And then our physical plane is 1, 4, and 7, which is the basic self. And that's our practical, that's our doing energy. So you'll find that this is where the planes are. When I talk about the mind plane, the soul plane, and the physical plane, and sometimes I exchange mind for mental, but this is what I'm talking about. Okay. So most of the numbers a birth chart can contain are 8. So like you can contain up to pretty much 8 most times. And then like 1, 2, and 3 must be repeated. So a lot of times if you're born in the 1900s, the 2000s, like you're going to have multiple 1s, 2s, and 3s if you have multiple numbers. So the maximum number of spaces like that can be on the chart is 7. So we're going to use the birthday from the example 5/15/1965 and plug those into the birth chart. Okay, so we look at the number. Obviously, this birthday has a lot of 5s. We got 1, 2, 3. So that means 3 5s go in the middle because that's where the number 5 goes. Okay. Then you have the number 1 because they only have one number. One number 1, and you plug that in here. And then you see that they have 1, 6, and then they have 1, 9. Okay. So make note of any of the repeating numbers, missing numbers, and present numbers, or if there's any zeros in their birthday. Now, on the chart, you don't put any zeros, but that doesn't mean, again, that they're not important. So we have to make note of them. Okay. So make note that determining your dominant self for improvement communication. Okay. The numerical value associated with each self indicates which one is dominant for an individual. Understanding which self is more dominant is crucial to determining one's preferred communication style. Like, pay attention to that preferred communication style. Knowing this information can significantly enhance our relationships with others. So if I'm looking at your birth chart or this person's birth chart, if I'm looking at this person's birth chart, I can see that they have a stronger soul plane because of the numbers that are placed here. It's 3 numbers compared to the 1 number here and the 2 numbers here. Their second strongest is their mind plane. And then their weakest is their physical plane because there's no numbers in this. I mean, besides 1, So you can look at how someone truly wants to express themselves or communicate in a sense based off of how their chart looks. 5 being a number of creativity and freedom, and not creative, sorry, the constructive freedom and adventure and change. This person may be very vibrant as far as when they're comfortable being super open and like wanting to travel, wanting to go places, like kind of doing everywhere, or they're really much in their heads a lot, if that makes sense. So yeah, if that makes sense, put something in the chat, let me know. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, there should be 2 1s. Yes, 2 1s here. So yeah, 2 1s, and then thank you for saying that. Yes, 2 1s. So there's 2 1s, the 15th and the 19 here. So like there's 2 1s here, so there'll be 2 1s here. But yes, either way, their soul plane is still stronger because there's 3 5s. But then, and also I would still say that their mind plane is the second strongest, and then their physical is still the weakest, just because it's spread out more on the mind plane, if that makes sense. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Okay. So let's practice with your own birthday. Put your birthday in the comments. Birthday in the comments, and then we can practice with your own. So if you downloaded the workbook, there's practice templates on there that you can look at your own birthday or look at somebody else's birthday as well too, if you're interested in that. I have a lot of people who were like, I'm having a child, I want to know, and then I help people with balancing out their birthday, or not their birthday, but their name and the energy behind that as well too. So yeah, if you practice with it, put your comments in the chat of your birthday, and then you can look at seeing how many numbers are actually in your birthday. And which ones are on a stronger plane, which ones are on a weaker, like which plane is weaker, which plane is stronger. Okay. All right. So while you're doing that, we're going to go into the next lesson, which is interpreting the numbers. All right. So now that you got in the hang of cracking the code and creating a birth chart, it's time to unravel the mystery behind these digits. Let's explore how these numbers tie into your unique being. This section will cover the numbers and how they relate to your characteristics and traits. So when we are doing, when we're looking at the numbers, okay, we're going to have to look at every aspect of the numbers. All right. So if we're looking at a birth chart and say again, how this last birth chart had 2 1s, you can look at what it means to have a 1 in your birthday, 2 1s in your birthday, 3 1s in your birthday, or 4 or more 1s. So if you have 1 1 in your birthday, so that means remember, your 1 it governs the communication. It's the ego. It's the individual. It's the self. The physical self. It's the gateway number to the physical plane. So if you are, I'm going to move this here. If you have 1 1 in your birthday, you may struggle with like verbal expression. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can't communicate effectively. It just means that you may encounter challenges when trying to articulate the most inner emotions and thoughts. So a lot of people like me who have 1 1 in their birthday, struggle with communicating the innermost emotions and thoughts. If you have 2 1s on your birthday, this creates a little bit more of a balanced self-expression and just a wider range of human interaction, and you have an ability to see both sides of a situation or a problem. So this trait, you'll see a lot of people who are public figures, politicians, sometimes they're artists, or they are mediators. Sometimes they may be like really good at like speaking at conferences, or be like the forefront of an organization of some sort that could just be talking more about how to like manage or how to help others in their journey in a sense. But yeah, somebody like a politician who is very much having to speak all the time definitely most likely has like two 2 1s, sorry. And if you have 3 1s, those who have 3 1s, they fall into different types. So you can be outgoing, talkative, sociable, the and that really shows if you do have soul plane numbers, like, which means you either have 2, 5, or 8. Now, if you got 3 1s, but you don't have any soul plane numbers, you can be very introspective or like an introvert. And you prefer that you express yourself through written expression, or just like being able to write things out or do art or somehow have a different form of communication rather than having verbal communication. But my personal experience, I've definitely seen a lot of people who are on both ends where they have 3 3s and they're like the life of the party. And then you got ones who only have 3 3s, but they don't have any other numbers in their soul plane. So they're just kind of like, I'd rather not, until they're comfortable, So if they're comfortable around you, then they'll start speaking, and then it just feels like their normal, normal way of communication. If you do have 4 or more 1s in your birthday, this creates an imbalance where it's like a lot more struggle with verbal self-expression, which can lead to emotional turmoil and inner unrest. So the ones who have multiple 1s in their chart, I would say definitely look at different creative ways to express yourself. This is particularly like children with multiple 1s should be encouraged to express themselves through a creative virtue until they develop verbal skills. Once they do develop verbal skills, then it becomes a little easier in that sense. So I have 3 1s with no soul plane numbers. Yeah, so like it can be until you are very much comfortable around people is when you start opening up. Otherwise, you can be very introverted or just kind of to yourself until you absolutely need to speak. So it can be very much like that. There's 2 spectrums to it. And I feel like the ones who don't have soul plane numbers, they are very much to themselves until they're around, like until they're comfortable. And when they're comfortable, then it can be like life of the party. That's what it is. It just kind of takes a little bit more finessing in a sense to get the ones who got 3 1s with no soul plane numbers, to get them out their shelf. Yeah, like that's just my personal experience. Would you relate to that per se? Let me know. All right. Now we move on to 2. If you have 1 2 in your birth chart, you pretty much have like, so 2, because 2 is a number of intuition, you have the potential for developing your intuition is very much there. But a lot of times people with 2s who just have 1 2, they their information, their intuition lies a little dormant. Okay. Now, what I've noticed is that like a lot of women naturally, like almost all women particularly, have that natural woman's intuition per se. And so they have a natural 2. And then if they have a 2 in their birthday and they haven't tapped into that energy, it's just untapped potential. That's really what it is. So yeah, like women are exceptions since they tend to naturally move intuitively. And it's rest and relaxation, particularly in nature, can greatly benefit those with any twos on their chart. So pretty much like women tend to have that natural intuition, and that's really what it aims to. Now, if you got two twos, individuals who got two twos in the chart possess a natural sensitivity, intuition, and ability to understand people's situations. They excel at judging character during the first impressions and are drawn to helping others on a soul level. This is something I can even attest to. I have two twos in my birthday. And this is something that like even with a lot of my friends, they'll be like, oh, what do you think? Or like, what do you think about this person? Or what are you getting from this? And so it's kind of me being like a psychic medium and working on a soul level in multiple occasions. My two twos tend to help me in that realm, So even when I'm in larger scenarios where I'm working for a company or I'm working with other people, I could tend to pick up on a lot of those things prior to it coming to fruition, or feeling that energy of other people to kind of help navigate on those different levels as well too. So like people who have two twos, it's pretty a hint of like balance there when it comes to working with your intuition in that sense. If you have three twos, this can become very hypersensitive. Like you can be very hypersensitive, very, very hypersensitive. I've witnessed people with multiple twos in their birthdays, and it can be like, it kind of tips over to like the unbalanced side, and it can be very overwhelming for that person because they experience life on a different level where they're super sensitive, and they causes like emotional turmoil, because not only does it create the sensitivity, but they are very empathic, so this is like overload of sensitivity in a sense. It says it can cause withdrawal and loneliness, so one must be careful to not be overloaded with other people's problems. Exactly. And however, those with three twos may excel in entertainment industries due to their natural ability to sensitively portray others. So like being able to tap into somebody else's emotions, that's what being an empath is being able to not only feel and tap into the people's emotions, but like their gifts as well too, if you truly are an empath. And actors and actresses are very good at being able to spark emotion in other people by tapping into that particular sense of emotion. And if you have four or more twos, this is just like very much overwhelming and like confusing. As you can see, the more you have, the more it can be like hard to maintain and navigate. It's like an overabundance of intuition or intuitive sensitivity, and can experience confusion and misinterpretation. So now here's the thing. A lot of times, and this can lead to this oversensitivity can lead to substance abuse, because there's a hard time maintaining the energy, maintaining the experience, and like what they're experiencing versus what others are experiencing. And so this is like, you can find sometimes like this can be a sense of like mental exhaustion as well too, like on a soul level. It's mental exhaustion on a soul level. So yeah, but birthdays with birthdays with four or more twos are just not as common at all. But for those who do have them, it's just recommended to like rest, meditate, and get counseling to help gain clarity and self-control. I say this because it's very important to recognize when there's like an overwhelming amount of things. And so a lot of times when people are so quick to label someone schizophrenic or like paranoid, or have these different medical terms to label somebody, we have to look at some of the information that is just shown in their actual chart, in their birth chart, because now when you have that information, as somebody who was born with multiple twos in their birthday, which is again not that common at all, but multiple twos like that, it can be very overwhelming. And on the outside looking in, somebody could think that someone is like schizophrenic, or they have like different mental emotional issues. So yes. You said until 2022. Yeah, because now at this point, now we're going to be Exactly. Let's say 3 2s. So yeah, so what you're going to find with kids, and we'll see it in the future. You'll see it even a little bit now, but these kids who were born in 2022 are now 1. So like I will always recommend the kids of this generation who were born in 2022, there needs to be a balance of like physical, emotional, and mental stimulation so that they aren't feeling exiled. Or like it just there needs to be it's like all hands on deck in a sense. We really need to cater to our young children now, because it's like now we're in a space now, we're seeing so many different kids born with all of these 2s. The moment 2000 came around, like the 2 became prominent. It became very prominent. So if you have kids who were born within 2022 and up, you're going to find them needing a lot more open-mindedness around their spirituality, open-mindedness around your own spiritual mind, because like what you may experience is not what they're experiencing. So and not to like, you can't throw your issues on those children. Like you can't do none of that. It's like a recipe for disaster. Recipe for disaster. So yeah. Now moving on to 3. If you got 1 3 in your birthday, this is like, because the 3 is the gateway number to the mind plane. Remember, 1 2 3 are the gateway numbers, the mind plane. So this is like really good for especially young kids, and being able to like promote learning and have like a very active mind. It helps, or active interest in life, and helps maintain a balanced and optimistic view of life. So those with the number 3 also tend to have a healthy level of self-confidence due to like their memory, and the memory's important role in self-esteem. So like a lot of times you see people who got 3s in their birthdays. I know plenty of people who got 3s in their birthdays, and you can find them being they're quick-witted. They're witty, and it can come off as very like, oh my gosh, you think really quick on your feet, or like, oh my gosh, you're so confident, or oh my goodness, like this is like really cool. Like you kind of hold yourself to a certain statue. And so so you can find that in like the people who got a 3 in their birthdays. Now I will say this, numbers 1 and numbers 2 are the only 2 numbers in the birth chart, the only 2 numbers in the birth chart that actually do well with having multiple of those numbers. So again, having 4 or more 2s can be very hard. Having 4 or more 1s can be very hard. But if you got 2 2s, 3 2s, 3 1s, 2 1s, like those are beneficial in a chart. Those are the only 2 numbers that are like really good. The moment you get to the other numbers in a chart, and if you got multiple of those numbers, then you'll start seeing not only the strengths but the weaknesses that come in with it. So now that we're at 3, having a 3 is great, but having 2 3s would be like, there's an increase in mental awareness, an increase in imagination, and because of that, because you have multiple 3s, you need to have a very well disciplined mind. And because a lot of that is like, it brings out a lot of getting lost in your imagination. So you'll need memory training, meditation, and intuition development to balance out and maintain the balance within your chart. So those who with multiple 3s often have exceptional writing skills and should be encouraged to develop or to help focus their imagination and potentially earn income. This is what I would say. If I saw a chart that had multiple 3s, I would be telling them to write fiction books, or like write write like comic books or something where they can use their imagination, bring it to the paper, and then make a living from it. Like I would say that. And then if you got 3 3s, people with 3 3s tend to have a dominant imagination. So if you can notice, like the 1 3 kind of brought in that balance imagination, but having multiple brings in like a dominance in imagination. So It can lead to being isolation. It can lead to isolation and difficulty focusing to the present. They may come across as unusual and have elaborate ideas. Remember, this is the mind playing number, so a lot of times you're gonna find people like, "Oh my gosh, I was thinking this, or I was thinking that, or I was thinking this." So artistic means can help them ground themselves in reality. Patience and understanding are important when dealing with them. So honestly, I find it's a very interesting thing, and I actually may do a different class on it, but like finding the mental sphere shows a lot of like potential diseases or illnesses that can come into the future as well too. So a lot of times when people are not if they don't have a 3 in their birthday, I would recommend that everybody without a 3 focuses on bringing mental activity into the play. So working on their memory, because you see in the future, a lot of people who don't enhance their 3 energy, whether they have it or not, they dementia can come into play, like memory loss, like things in later in life when you have an undeveloped energy around that 3. If you don't focus on it, it can come from there. So yeah, so that's why you'll see a lot of like older individuals still doing things to keep their mind active, so I look at it as the 3 energy, keep your mind active. Those with 4 or more 3s, let me see, like March 3rd or March 31st, like and it depends on what time that was, but it tend to have like a mental activity and may experience fear, worry, or confusion. They benefit from being fully engaged in physical, creative activities, especially working with their hands. Despite having few friends, they need a social interaction as a distraction from their mental focus. The occurrence of 4-3s only happens once a century, which the last one was March 31st, 1933. And then the next one is, whoopsie, hold on. Why am I not able to see it? Oh, sorry. I can't see that date. There we go. March 3rd, 2033. There we go. So yeah. So know that that's what's coming. All right. And moving on to number 4. If you got a 4 in your birthday, this is where the 4th number of practicality. It's the number of organization. But if you have a 4 in your birthday, the people are like very practical and active. You may find people with 4s in their birthday be like very into fitness. They may be very much into like trades or like doing things with their hands, maybe knitting or something. They're doing something. But they prefer tangible and provable topics over theoretical topics. And they seek rational explanation for unknown things and have a natural skepticism. However, they tend to focus too much on the material things, but with patience, they can develop compassion for others and avoid excess materialism. So 4 can become very materialistic. That's it. Materialism, material girl, like that's literally a 4. 4s are all about their money. They're about getting things together, having things together, and then everything is very logical, everything is very rational. 2 4s in your birthday symbolizes balance, but a double 4 can result in an unbalance towards material and physical aspects of life. So people with double 4s should strive for balance between physical, spiritual, and mental aspects. It's important for them to avoid friends or partners who smoke heavily or drink, as they may hinder the double 4's ability to find balance. So one thing I noticed is like having multiple 4s, you can be susceptible to like addictions, whether that's being a workaholic or alcoholic or a smoker, so like that's why it says to be very aware of who you're surrounded by. Let's see, 3 4s, you pretty much are drawn to like manual labor and become enslaved by the physical world. That is harsh to say, but that's really what happens. Like you're enslaved by the physical world. The lesson is to master the physical world without overindulging in it. And then the balance between the physical, mental, and spiritual is crucial. So those who have a 444 may have a weaker lower limbs due to focus on the legs. So numbers, the energy and numbers can show up in your body if you did not know that. So when you are experiencing, and we'll talk about it in our next class, but like when you experience a certain physical ailments, it can be very much due to the numbers that are present and the energy that may be blocked from those numbers or within those numbers. So, and then if you have four or more fours, this last happened in what 1944. Yeah, and it won't happen again until 2044. And those who are influenced by this number tend to be extremely physical and overly skeptical, which can be annoying. It's important for them to find balance along the 3 planes and take care of their lower extremities, as issues with legs, ankles, and feet can cause serious issues. So yeah, that's your 4s for you. Put in a comment if that makes sense, if you have a 4 or whatnot. Again, as you can see, the more of the same numbers you're having, the harder it can become. Now moving to 5. If you got a 5 is the number of freedom, change, adventure, expression, free expression from the heart. So if you have number 5 in your birthday, it's the most balanced as a single digit number. Okay, it achieves emotional control using a natural emotional sensitivity, and the 5 as an intuitive tool. With the emotional self-control and understanding, those with a single 5 have a deep respect for other people's feelings. 5s are the ones who speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. You'll see that happening a lot. If someone has strong 5 energy in their chart, whether they are a life path 5 or they have a lot of 5s in their chart, they may be the ones speaking up for the ones who cannot speak for themselves or who will not speak for themselves. And so you could find that very much like protective energy for the 5, because they thrive in expressing themselves and feeling free to do so. If you got 2 5s in your chart, it's pretty much you're like very driven and confident. However, you may struggle with intense emotions and blow things out of proportion. Pretty much. This can be having like hella drama, different issues with your relationships. You may not keep friends that long, just because everything is like a hidden agenda behind it. And then like 5 is also because it's in the middle of the chart. If you look at the chart, and we can go back to our charts. Let's go back to the chart. If you look at the chart here, 5 is in the middle of the chart. And is also boxed in by all the other numbers. Ironically, the number is all about freedom and extending outside of the barriers. That's literally what this is all about. So if you find yourself feeling like, oh, I need to escape, that's what the 5 is. It's like escapism. All right, let's go back. All right, so if you have 3 5s, it's the double 5 magnified. So pretty much you're just adding on the information to it. It's adding on the energy to it. So it's a lot of sensitivity, and it's hard for a lot of people to understand or deal with or handle in general. So training and self-discipline and emotional self-control is a must. If the more work you put into developing your control and your sensitivity, the less likely you're able to create major blockages and barriers for protection. So a lot of times, like, and this of course be a hindrance in your social life, but a lot of times there's so many barriers, and you see again 5 is encompassed and behind inside of all of the numbers. This is going to be like it's super harsh for the person to experience, so they create those barriers. They lash out sometime, And in order to avoid that, they create those barriers, and then it stops them from building relationships. And then of course 4 or more 5 just is very rare. You're not going to really see it until 2055. And the last one was 5/25/1955. So you're not going to really see it too much, but a lot of these people are experiencing, like, they experience a lot of stress. They may be accident prone just because of their recklessness. There's a lot of reckless energy that comes with the number 5, and having multiple of those can like really lead to being very accident prone, or having like digestive diseases or high emotional stress. So as you can see, that's how it kind of leads into that. And then you have the 6s. And we're almost there, y'all. We're almost there, but you got to know what it looks like, okay? Put in the chat if you have how many of the numbers that you have. If you have 1 1, 2 1s, 3 5s, 1 5, 1 4, whatever. Put it in the chat. So if you got a 6 in your birthday, 6 is like the creative expression around home and family. It is the balance between work life and home life. So hands-on creating arts and performance is also very common. And then over time, they may develop creative expression in their profession or hobbies, leading to a significant growth in their abilities. Now, someone who, and we'll talk about it later on, but someone who has a 6 in their birthday exhibits those signs. But also people who have birthday, like their actual day of birth, equals up to the 6 can exhibit this too. So it's the same way with other numbers as well. Like I am born on the 24th, 2 + 4 is 6. I exhibit 6 qualities in that sense as well too. But my 2 and 4s initially are present in my birth chart. So that's an example of like what that can look like. If you have 2 6s in your birthday, it can amplify the negative traits if creativity is not positively expressed regularly. So like I said, the pendulum swings, and when it's hard, it's very hard. When it's easy, it's very easy. But like it amplifies, the 6 amplifies whatever the energy is. So if it's going to amplify your creative energy, then yes, express it creatively. But if you are not expressing creatively, it will amplify the destruction energy, as we discussed before. Okay. And so we have if you have the 2 6s, there's like a lack of maturity, and that in a sense creates worry, anxiety, stress, irritability, especially like at home and at work. So again, you just have to establish balance. And the external creative expression is key to avoiding negativity. A creative career is important, and they require more rest and relaxation than most due to the excessive nervous energy. So the 6 is all about nervousness. It's all about the nervous energy as well, so the nervous system, whereas the 5 is like very digestive energy. So like pay attention to these things, because all the numbers actually relate to certain body parts as well too. If you have multiple or you have 3 6s in your birth chart, again, worry, anxiety, and then like especially for women who are at the home, who focus on the home. So like excess 6 energy can lead to extreme protectiveness and possessive love, but it can also bring out brilliant creativity. Unfortunately, many with the 6 never realize its potential and turn their energy inward, causing emotional chaos. To find balance, rest, and health in a healthy diet and a creative expression are recommended. So yeah, you'll find that there. Then if you got 6 or more, 4 or more 6s, pretty much it's very much in the creative power. But it says like the last one, let's see, we have the date 6/26/1966, 6/26/2066. Like these, I'm interested to see what 66 looks like, and I hope I'm around. So yeah. But there's different exceptional creative powers that come with it. However, the 4 6s accentuate both sides, and many become compulsive warriors who harm their health and relationships with constant complaining. Children with 4 or more sixes can overcome this with unconditional love from parents. For adults, finding partners with friends with patience may be more challenging. So this is why I tend to help a lot of children with or a lot of parents with their children around their birth chart, just because it kind of gives them the key to helping them understand how to support their kids or their pets. Like everybody has a birth chart because we're all born someday, right? So everybody can look and you can see like what your pet or your child or your friend or your mother or your father or everybody else, like what their charts look like, so that you can kind of determine how that feels for them. Hold on. Let's see. I think I had the 7 or 6 on here twice. Okay. It's the 7. So here we are with the 7. 7 is a teaching and learning number, sacrifice and loss, so the 7 signifies sacrifice and health. The 3 areas is health, love, and money. Health, love, and money. That's sacrifice and health, love, and money, which can be perceived as negative. But the purpose of the sacrifice is to give up to acquire. By disconnecting identity from material possessions, the difference between needs and wants becomes clear. Loss only occurs with selfishness, not unconditional love of self and others, which is necessary for balance and wholeness. So if you have a 7, if you do not have a 7 in your birthday, that doesn't necessarily mean you don't have any lessons to learn in your life. It just means that you may have already learned some of those lessons in the past life, and you came into this life not really necessarily need to learn those same lessons, but or you have to learn a lesson, and like it takes you acquiring the energy of the 7 in order for you to learn it. So a lot of times people view the 7 energy as negative, but it's really not negative, especially if you're sacrificing in order to acquire. So if you got 2 7s, you pretty much could, like if you have 1 7, you're sacrificing and losing, or you could be sacrificing and losing in one of those 3 areas. If you have 2 7s, it's 2 of those 3 areas. And so again, health, money, and love. And that results in intense sacrifice, but also opportunities for growth and understanding. Living positively involves recognizing the sacrifice as a positive and striving for greater understanding of life, while negative living entails constant complaining and blaming others for misfortune, leading in the negative, miserable attitude that others may avoid. Now, I've witnessed people with 7s in their 7 energy, and they have very victimized, like in the negative is very victimization. Like there's a lot of victimization happening. Like everything is happening to me, why me? And and instead of changing their perspective and looking at how they're growing from it, how they can shift it, how they can work with it, how they can learn and flourish from it. And then if you have 3 7s, it can bring loss in all 3 of those areas, but provides a philosophical understanding. So the individuals with this number may experience sadness from sacrifice and loss, but their wisdom and understanding often helps them cope. Alternatively, falling victim to negativity can cause depression and antisocial behavior, leading to further losses. So again, it's just like these are like harsh lessons to kind of learn in that sense. And then if you got 4 or more 7s, the combination of numbers in the date are pretty rare and don't really happen at all, but it is a heavy sacrifice and loss, and it can be overwhelming, and it can shift an outlook. The shift in outlook can lead to spiritual growth and development and self-discipline, and allow for more positive focus. So I think it's one of those things, like it's kind of, you're going to have to learn the lesson to shift it, or you're just going to keep going through it. And if you're tired of keep going through this stuff, then like, what is it that needs to change, So the 7 will bring that to attention. All right. And then we got 8s. Almost there, y'all. Almost there. Okay. If you have an 8 in your birthday, you can be very methodical. and efficient when positive, but maybe apathetic and unstable when negative. So they those with the 8 with 1/8 in their birthday possess a practical wisdom, attention to detail, and orderliness. However, negativity can lead them to emotional instability, restlessness, and a desire for change in areas like work, home, and or relationships. So yes, again, the 8 is really like 8 is really good when it comes to practical wisdom and just like being, it's the double 4, the double 4. But like 8 can be very materialistic as well too. So like just like the 4 can, you got to be careful with the 8. 2 8s, those with 2 8s have a heightened perceptiveness and keen attention to detail. It is important for them to maintain a positive outlook and avoid overconfidence or demanding behavior. They may experience restlessness, which can be positively channeled through travel to seek knowledge and wisdom. Traveling during youth is important. It's particularly important for them to avoid frustration and irritability later in life. So you'll find people who like may be really frustrated, you know, because they have untapped 8 energy that they didn't really work on. And so if you got 3, it's restlessness and pessimistic and can overshadow the positive traits. Again, as you see, the more we have, the more struggle it is. Love and guidance can help encourage a more positive outlook. Choosing to see and live life positively leads to wisdom and independence. The positive 888 is busy, but exudes inner stability and gains many friendships. So, and I'll go to the 4. Let's see. The last birthday with the 4s, or 4 more 8s, sorry, 4 more 8s was on 8/28/1988, and the next one will be on 8/8/2088. People born these days tend to be hyperactive and restless, and as children, they should not be forced to remain still, as it can cause frustration and erratic behavior. Traveling often is also important for them, especially during their youth. So one thing you're going to you're going to take notice of is like the aspect of traveling is very common within the 5 energy and the 8 energy. 8, the lessons with 8 energy is knowing that like you can be dependable, because 8 energy is very dependable, but then like a lot of times the 8 energy can be very it don't like to be depended upon too much, or it'll like retract in a sense and feel like it's losing its own independence. And that's not the case at all. It's actually like you can balance yourself a lot more when you're not being super materialistic around like what it is that you're giving in that sense. So it's a very interesting thing, but you'll see like needing to travel, needing to kind of expand out and put more information, put more energy into your rest and play is kind of like what you'll see in common with like a 8 and a 6 or an 8 and a 5. So yeah, let me know if that makes sense. And then here we go. We are at number 9, finally. Number 9, if you have 1/9 in your birthday, which a lot of people now do, at least 1/9 in their birthday, this embodies the ambition, responsibility, and idealism. 9 is a 3-fold number, so it represents ambition, responsibility, idealism. And although the ambition has led to great advancements, it has also caused negative consequences as environmental damage and suffering. So you know how the 9 is all about humanitarianism and like charity and giving and being really idealistic and ambitious. The negative is like damaging, causing environmental damage. Like if you pay attention to it, the 1900s is literally like you're finding more and more information about global warming and how the environment is like dying, and there's so much more happening right now with suffering with food, lack of food, and lack of resources. So like that's the negative of the 9. So balance is key, and those with the 9 should strive to strive for moderation by utilizing all 3 traits in harmony. So all 3 traits of ambition, responsibility, and idealism in harmony. If you have 2 9s, which all 90s babies have 2 9s. The personality is characterized by intense idealism and seriousness, which can be hard to follow through without a practical outlook. They can be judgmental of others, less intense idealism, but their underlying helpfulness can outweigh this trait. So you'll see a lot of people in that generation have really large ideas and like are super stern on the fact that they have this idea, this is what they want to do, and they don't have the mental capacity to understand why somebody else does not think the same way. So like it can cause judgment, it can cause people to be judgmental, and sometimes it can be like considered like pigheadedness, but it's all good. You just gotta outweigh the trait with the helpfulness part. So a lot of times, and also you'll see like 9 energy. I would say like a 9 energy would need a 4, because the 4 can give you a practical outlook of how things can get done. The 9 has the idea of what they want to do and why they want to do it and what they want to do with it. But if they don't have the practical outlook of the 4 energy, you would just have an idea and it just falls. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, there's 2 2s, there's 3, I mean 2 2s, 2 9s, 3 9s. If you have a triple 9, the intense power of idealism and ambition can create mental imbalance when not controlled. Children can learn to balance their emotions, their expression across all 3 planes instead of focusing solely on the mental plane. In negative cases, the triple 9 can cause temper flares and loss of emotional control, leading to mental imbalance. Objectivity and perspective can help diffuse anger and judgment and allow for greater deviation from strict idealism rules. So a lot of times, and I'm seeing this often, I actually just saw someone with like 4 9s in their birthday. And it is very common, especially since you have the 1990s. So, but you see that, and it's like there needs to be a lot more catering to the balance of all the planes instead of focusing on the mental plane, because that's where all the energy is right now. So if you have 4 or more 9s, those with 4 or more 9s, it's rare, but I've seen it happen. I've seen it a lot, actually. It's not as rare as like the other ones who, like the 3s or the 6s or anything like that. But if you do, like, it is still a rare thing. So those usually fall into multiple 2 different categories. So you live in a fantasy reality, and those take on an air of superiority, which means, remember, the 9s kind of have a hard time understanding that other people have a different capacity, a mental capacity that they don't have. Or if it's not the same, they struggle with understanding why it's not the same. So then you have the superiority concept of like you look down on other people. So the former group tends to remove themselves from society due to the severe unbalanced idealistic views, while the latter group enjoys talking down to others and may experience rage issues. Counseling is recommended to help develop a more realistic view and manage anger. So again, remember I told you the 9 is the war number. It's given like the number of war. I think it's also the number of Mars, I believe. And Mars is the planet of war. So like there's an anger component to it, and you'll find a lot of that emotion of anger shows up in the 9 energy. All right, cool. So questions about the 9 numbers in your chart. If you have any questions, let me know. We are almost done. And we got this last part here that we're going to talk about, which is the isolated numbers. Okay. If you see your birth chart or a birth chart, and there are numbers that are missing like the numbers 2, 5, and let me see, 2, 5, and 4. So 2, 5, and 4. If these numbers are missing, then that means this number, and you have a 1. Say you have a 1. If those numbers are missing, then this number 1 is isolated. Okay. And so isolated numbers should be like you should pay attention to it, because even if the number is there or it's not there, having an isolated number is important to recognize, because you're missing components that are surrounding these numbers, which shows like a disconnection. Now, when the birth chart is missing 2, 5, or 4, and the number one becomes isolated, leading to challenges in expressing feelings and causing frustration. These individuals often feel alone and misunderstood, with a dominance on the mental plane, especially if the numbers are here. Okay. The number 5, located in the center of the birth chart, can bridge the gap and generate balanced expression. Developing the qualities of the 2 and the 4 can also help balance the 3 planes and improve verbal self-expression with the isolated 1. So if you have the 1 here and you don't have these numbers here, it's extremely important to take on the characteristics of like the 2, the 5, or the 4, so that you can have a better way of understanding your own communication and being able to communicate yourself and express yourself better. Now, same thing goes for isolated number 3. If you're missing numbers 2, 5, and 6, then it's called the isolated 3 problem, but it's limiting the 3's mental power and practical application due to its lack of connection with the 4 physical plane. So there's nothing connecting. Oops, sorry, y'all. There's nothing connecting this number 3 to this plane here. So there's a lack of connection. Developing the power of the 5 and the 2 also, as well as a creative expression of the 6, can remedy this. Triple isolated 3s amplify the issue, while 6 can link the 3 and the 9, leading to a balanced mental outlook and clearer thinking abilities. So pay attention to your chart. Do you have any isolated numbers here? And then we're going to move on to isolated number 7. If you're missing the numbers 4, 5, and 8 here, 4, 5, and 8. If you're missing the numbers 4, 5, and 8, it can make it harder for you to learn a cycle. To complete the learning cycle. The isolated 7 is disconnected from the mind plane, so it makes it difficult to understand and learn from experiences, leading to repeated life lessons. Developing the qualities of the 4, 5, and 8 can help bridge the gap and alleviate extra suffering caused by repeated learning. So again, if you have a 7 here or multiple 7s, again, which is like the sacrifice and loss in the areas of love, money, and family and relationships. So if you're looking at that, then and you're going through those cycles again, infuse the qualities of the 4, 5, and 8, so that you can actually have a balanced connection with all 3 planes. And then again, with the 9, the isolated 9, if you're missing 5, 6, and 8, it can cause the isolated 9, which is unfulfilled ambition and impractical idealism. Developing qualities of the 5, 6, and 8 can be beneficial, which the 5 links the 9 to allow 1 to express idealism and ambition through verbal communication. If the 7 is present, developing an 8 can provide an additional link to the mental and physical planes. So the goal here in general with these isolated numbers, when you're born with these, is to identify the links that you want to highlight, so that you can communicate, you can express, you can associate, you can do all these different things in ways that you probably wouldn't have naturally been able to do. Okay, so here we go. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. All right, so here's where we go. We're closing out to the end of our session today. This is important to know, because now that you got all the basic information of the numbers and how many numbers it takes for you to experience certain characteristics, I'm sure you're probably looking at some of this stuff and you're like, hey, let me look at my mom's chart. let me look at my dad's chart. Let me look at my sister, and you can start seeing the combination of numbers and like what the placement of them, and being able to tell some of their own characteristics and things that you can actually help them with, or they can help themselves with, by knowing this information. I think the only thing really with this is like truly just knowing it, and now you can just do better. When you know better, you do better. So you can see like, okay, when I was a kid, I felt these type of things, but I didn't really get to hone in on like that 3 energy, or I didn't get to hone in on the 5 energy. And just because these numbers aren't present in your actual birth chart doesn't mean they don't show up in your whole numerology. Let me make that clear. So someone who doesn't have, like I said before, like for me, I don't have a 6 on my birthday, but my actual birth day is 24, and 2 plus 4 equals 6. And that in itself is a whole different level of expression. So I do have 6 energy in my chart, and it's very heavy. I have 5 energy in my chart, even though my birthday doesn't contain the number 5. So like, you can see these different aspects of your chart by looking at your full numerology chart. And that's something that you can do. Like if you want a numerology reading from me that gives you that information, you can just click the link in my bio, go to my website, queenswithlitdreams.com, and book you a numerology reading. So here are the next steps. So what you'll need is the course workbook, which if you go to the website and you look at the steps, you can download the course workbook, and you'll need access to the Chalk It Up to the Numbers course group, which is on my website as well too. If you automatically enrolled into that course, or this course, you have access to that group. And then you'll just need some birthdays in mind if you want to look and think about who you want to talk about in your birthdays, or just look at in general. And so what you're going to do is you're going to complete your own birth chart. Complete your own birth chart. Okay, this is just the beginning. We haven't even gotten into the full aspect of like what happens now when you see the connections. Okay, but complete your own birth chart. What is your birth chart saying? How many numbers do you have in there? And looking at that in itself. And then you're going to interpret the numbers in your chart. So utilize it, and I will provide these slides as well too as notes for you to use in your journey of figuring out your own chart. Interpret the numbers. Do these characteristics resonate with you in your chart? Have you been able to embrace other aspects of the chart? Have you been able to embrace the 8, the 9, the 7, the 2, the 1, the 3? Like, have you been able to do these things to support you in your life in journey before? I mean, your journey in general. And then I want you all to complete a review. We're going to give you a review, and then post what you learned about your chart in the group. Doesn't have to be anything big. Doesn't have to be anything, elaborate. You could just say like, I learned that certain places in my chart I struggle with, or I have these challenges. If you don't have the numbers that you are like that are missing, or if you have missing numbers in your chart, it means that you have to embrace those particular numbers. So if you look at the energy of every number that we discussed today, and you realize that you don't possess those particular numbers in your chart, that means that you have to possess those characteristics throughout your life. You're going to have to work extra hard to possess the knowledge of the 8, or possess the practicality and the action orientedness of the 4. Or you're going to have to work extra hard to express yourself from a heart-centered space if you don't have a 5. So like, if you don't have those numbers, you're just going to have to work extra hard throughout your life to do that. So yeah, post that stuff in the chat, and then like in the group, and we can discuss more about what that looks like. So one of the things I would say, a bonus tip, is like to take your time and practice looking at multiple birthdays to test your knowledge. And that way you can start looking at like, okay, I notice, this is what I do all the time. I look at, especially if I'm doing a TikTok live, or I'm doing a podcast where I'm doing a reading for somebody, and I'm looking at their numerology, and I don't have, a calculator in my hand, or I'm just like paying attention to the little tic-tac-toe Pythagorean chart that I showed you today is what I imagine, and I place the numbers there as I go every time I look at somebody's numbers. So if you say, hey, what's your birthday? and your birthday, you give me your birthday, I can plug it in. And based off of that, now I can tell what the characteristics are of that person. And it makes a lot of sense when it comes to, you know, your ability to kind of decipher certain things. And it's not meant for judgmental purposes. It's not meant for you to be like, oh, well, I don't like this person, or I do like this person. It's more meant for you to have a better understanding or understanding of life, human interaction, and the human in the spiritual connection to the human, you know. So it is something that you can utilize, and it'd be really great. Okay. So, and also make sure you double check. I did, like, earlier in the presentation, I missed a 1. You gotta double check it. So double check. I am not a mathematician. Although I do numerology, I am not a mathematician, and you couldn't pay me enough to say that I am. So just double check your work and just continue to keep practicing. All right, so that's it for this particular session. If you have any questions, let me know. Put it in the group chat. And if you are interested in learning more about it and wanting to do more, we can definitely talk further about it. And then know, like, the numbers are the universal language. The language of the universe. That's literally what it is. I mean, yeah, we got planets, we got astrology, we got different languages, but numbers are the language of the universe. And that was given by Pythagoras as well, too. So next in the class, okay, the next class that we're going to have is going to talk about the connection. So this is the arrows of individuality and how to navigate the strengths and weaknesses they create. So when you look at your birth chart, any planes that anywhere that it's like a tic-tac-toe, like an X, you know, like all 3 of those connections are made in any plane, going diagonal, up and down, horizontally, you know, those create arrows, whether they're missing numbers that are creating a connection, or present numbers that are creating a connection, and those create arrows of individuality. That goes deeper into, now, what does the connection mean, and how do you navigate that? And then the second lesson in that is we're now going to be calculating and aligning with your life path numbers. So now we're going to get into the life path numbers. And now that you have a basic understanding of the numbers, think what the life path numbers can actually mean. And then we're going to talk about the expression number and how to use it to navigate your life path number. So we can have the same life path numbers, but the way I express my life path number and the way you express your life path number is very different. And we will talk about that in our next class as well, too. And if you still have any questions, feel free to reach me on the course group. You can email me at queenswithlitdreams@gmail.com, or DM me on social media, mostly on Instagram or TikTok, at Queens with Lit Dreams. So there's that. Thank you for joining us. And if you're interested in any of the numerology services, I have these available in PDF version only, or one-on-one sessions. So this is the blueprint. This is your full birth chart. And we talk about all the numbers. Your diamond site reading, which is just your forecast reading. So up to 1 year, I do month by month what your month energy is going to be looking like and how to navigate that energy for the month and the year. And then a projector is if you have a business that you're looking for information on and see what your business energy is, there's that. And I also have a name analysis set service as well, too, and that's PDF version only. But figure out the energy behind your name, and if it's supporting you, if it's making it difficult in your life, is it creating some disharmony in it? But yeah, and you can look at like all these different services on my website at queenswithlitdreams.com. So again, thank you everybody for joining me today. It is extremely important that, you know, you take care of yourself and look at the numbers, practice. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please let me know. We're going to stop the recording, and then we're going to answer some of these questions here. All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.